Hello and welcome back to our channel. Today we are making sourdough bread. I have been watching other YouTube videos and reading and trying so hard to get a good active starter to bake a good loaf of sourdough for a long time, and I think we finally have it figured out. This bowl has been on top of my cupboard with these things from my grandma and grandpa's house for years, but I think I'm going to bring it back into life and see if it will help with my sourdough making. Good morning. It is about 6:30 and we just got done feeding the dogs, and now it's time to feed the starter, and we are going to make sourdough today. So I've been feeding and discarding my starter all week and it's gotten nice and active. So today we're going to do a large feed and get it really active so that it's ready to be the leavening for our sourdough bread. So let me show you how to do this. So I have been trying to make starter for a long time, and I don't follow directions very well when I'm baking or cooking. So I never understood why you were supposed to discard most of your starter, and I watched a video the other day where a girl explained it, and it's because the energy or the bacteria isn't strong enough to keep this whole thing going as much as you need. So that's why you dump some of it out and then refeed it. So I fed this extra throughout the week. I did 30 grams of flour and 30 grams of water, which is different volume. And so when you are doing your starter feeding, you really want to make sure that you weigh it, because I was doing a quarter cup of flour and a quarter cup of water, and that's too much water because volume and weight are different. So this is the starter, and you can see how active it was yesterday. It went all the way up to here. So today I'm going to dump half of this out, and I'm going to feed 100 grams because that's what I need for bread. So I'm going to stir it up. So I've got it stirred up and it smells really sour and good, bad but good. And then I'm going to dump half of it into this jar. And this I'm going to put in the fridge because I'm not going to make bread next week. So I'm going to put this in the fridge and just let it sit and bring it out next week when I'm ready to make another loaf of bread. So at the same time that I'm feeding my starter, I'm also going to put my water and flour together. The word is autolyse. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. I've heard people say it different ways, but basically you get your flour and your water mixed together and give them a couple of hours to sit, and that starts to ferment as well. So the recipe that I have says to do 1,000 grams of flour and 750 grams of water. So I have several different kinds of flour here, and I'm just going to be watching the scale and putting approximately a cup of each in to the bowl, and till we get to 1,000 grams. This is called Cairo flour. I had never heard of it before, and the lady at the store said that it's what they use most of for their baking. They make scones, biscuits, caramel rolls, bread rolls, so I took her word for it. This is a medium ground whole wheat flour. This is spelt flour. This is rye. If you've never used rye flour before, it's amazing how light it is. It's crazy. And then this is just regular unbleached white flour. I'm at 930, so I'm going to finish it off with this Cairo flour. Okay, and then I'm going to dump in the water, and I pre-weighed this water so I know. I'm not going to dump it all in just so I can. This spoon that I'm using is called a Sourdough. It's a Scottish, Todd bought it for Emma and I for our birthdays, and it's kind of funny because we then read that you're supposed to use it if you're supposed to use it in your right hand and stir clockwise, lest you invoke the devil. And I'm left-handed, so I can't help it. But we're hoping for the best. This does not look wet enough to me, and so I'm going to add a little bit more water. All right, I don't want to over wet it because the starter, when it gets in here, will increase the moisture content in the dough. So I think that's as wet as I want to get it for now. And so I'm just gonna scrape off the sides of the bowl here, grab a clean tea towel, and throw it over the top. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put our starter into the flour and water that's been sitting together. This might raise a little bit more, but I kind of timed it yesterday, and after about 3 hours it started to fall. So I want to get it while it's still active and rising into the flour and water. Okay, so I have my bowl on my scale, and I'm going to be adding check my notes. I'm going to be adding 150 grams of the starter and 20 grams of salt. And I already measured out the salt, and it's quite a bit. Like, you need a lot more salt than you think you do. So I'm going to sprinkle that in, and I'm just using Himalayan salt. And then I'm going to zero my scale back out. And then I'm going to dump in 150 grams, and see, it's pretty thick. It went a little bit over, but I'm sure it'll be fine. And then I'm just going to incorporate this together. I'm going to move this down a little. And now I'm just going to gently kind of fold and stretch this out until that starter is fully incorporated into the dough. And then I'm going to just kind of do this periodically over the next probably 2 or 3 hours. So you have to you want to stretch it and fold it over, and stretch it and fold it over. So you're kind of getting that gluten working along with getting your starter incorporated into your flour and water. So this is going to get covered up, and about every half an hour over the next 2 or 3 hours, I'm going to come back to it and I'm gonna keep working it like this. So for now, we're just covering it up again. So this has been resting a little longer than I had intended, but so now I'm just gonna come back to it and do these stretch and folds again. And I can feel it already is starting to come together into a nice dough. And this is the last stretch and fold, so I'm just going to go back around the bowl and do a nice, and it's nice and pliable. So this is the last one, and now we go into the extended or the long raise. So this is gonna sit covered with plastic wrap until about 8 o'clock tonight. It's around noon now. Okay, so we are gonna do the last step before we put our bread in the refrigerator to proof overnight. The first step that we're going to do is to take our loaf, our dough that has been raising all day. It's 8 o'clock and it started raising at noon. So if you see, it's a nice full bowl of dough, and we're going to flour the countertop and form our loaves and then put them into the baskets to proof overnight. All right, so I'm just gonna carefully pour this dough because I don't want to knock down all the good raising that it did all day. I'm gonna turn this camera down so you can see the counter. The first thing that we're gonna do is to separate this into 2 sections. And they recommend that you use like a big bench scraper for this, but I don't have all the fancy sourdough. I have to get a loaf that bakes first, and then if I can achieve an actual loaf of bread, then I'll maybe think about buying some of the tools. Until then, we just use what we have. So this is how you are supposed to shape your loaf. You just fold it over itself, just kind of like this, and then stretch and fold and over, and then just need a little bit of flour. That's probably too much, and we're just going to let that rest. And then this one, same thing, just fold over itself, kind of make a mini braid out of it, and then just roll it up onto itself. And then we're going to cover those up, and they're going to take a few minutes to do what we call a bench rest. And while that's happening, we're going to get the proofing baskets ready for in the fridge. And is what you can buy Bannetons, I think they're called. You can buy them, but I just use these 2. I'm using a glass bowl and then more of an oval shaped container. And then you just flour them really well so that your dough doesn't stick. So you can see, I used a black tea towel so you can really see the flour. Okay, now let's done barking for a minute. So let's see if we can get these loaves into the baskets. So you're supposed to take them seam side down and then just drop them into your proofing basket, and then just make sure that you have enough flour along the edges, And I'm going to put a little bit of flour along the top too, just so that when I put the plastic wrap over the top, it doesn't stick to the loaf. And then here's our second loaf. Oh, I don't want the twist tie in there. And just dropping that into this proofing basket and making sure that the flour and everything is there. All right, and now these are going to get covered with plastic and wrapped up and put in the fridge overnight. Good morning, we are ready to bake. So it is about 6:45. At about an hour ago, I turned my oven on at 500 and put my Dutch oven inside of it. You don't have to get up at 5:30 on a Sunday morning to do this, but we have 4 dogs in our house who are used to getting fed early, and they don't care that it's Sunday morning. And then I'm going to score this. I don't have a scoring tool, but I think Todd's fish knife will be the sharpest thing I have, so I'm going to try that. Well, I've got these serrated knives here too. Maybe I'll put a couple in like that. And then just going to spray some water on it, and that's going to help get that blistered crust. And then I'm going to open the oven here. And because I'm using, my Dutch oven has legs on it, so I'm going to try and leave it in the oven. I've been using my enamel pot for this, but it's starting to get really brown on the inside, so it's kind of ruining the enamel. I'm just going to drop that in the pot, put the lid on, slide that back in. Okay, and now I'm going to turn the oven down to 450, and we're going to do that for 20 minutes. And then I'm going to come back and take the lid off and bake it for another 20. Okay, so the timer went off for the first 20 minutes, and now I'm going to pull the lid off. And then, oh shucks. Okay, so it looks like we have a really nice loaf of bread started here, but one thing, oh my God. That's beautiful. One thing that I like to do when I do this is drop the trivet to my, I'm going to spray, drop the trivet to my Instant Pot in there so that it doesn't burn the bottom. And now we go another 20 minutes. Okay, so our final timer just went off, and now we're going to take this baby out of here, and I am so excited. Look at how pretty that is. It's got the nice crust on it. Wow. I don't think we're going to let this cool off. I think we're going to have it for breakfast, and now we're going to repeat the same steps with loaf number 2. I did it. Look at how pretty that is, and it's nice and high. It's not burnt on the bottom. Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm so excited. You should let this cool off, but I don't know how you can. After working 2 days to get a loaf of bread baked, I don't know how you can wait. So let's cut into this baby and see what it looks like inside. Oh, wow. Smells so good. Look at that. I baked sourdough. They want my sourdough. Thank you for watching our sourdough making video. Please subscribe so you can see what we're up to next.